Mario was my introduction to gaming, and I mean that in a literal sense. I think a lot of us were brought into this community by Nintendo. Whether it was by playing Pokemon Red on a friend's Game Boy or Ocarina of Time at a cousin's house, Nintendo turned many of us into gamers at a young age. For me, it was Mario himself. At the tender age of 6, I went over to my buddy Shane's house to find him playing Super Mario 64 on his Nintendo 64 that he had just gotten for Christmas. I was floored. Of course, I'd played games before, educational ones on my dad's computer. But this was an adventure. You took control of a man, jumping around a fantasy world, collecting stars and fighting monsters. It was everything I considered cool at the time. In that instant, my life fundamentally changed. I knew that whatever I ended up doing with my life, it simply had to involve video games in some way. Hence, my penchant for making videos. Mario had gotten inside my head, and it started jumping all over my plans for the future. In the Christmas that followed my introduction to gaming, there was only one thing that I wanted. I wanted that feeling I got when I was hopping around Peach's castle, collecting stars and throwing Bowser into exploding spike balls. I wanted a Nintendo 64. Little did I know that I was skipping over a Mario game that I would come to regard as a staple of the role-play video game genre, Super Mario RPG. And, in light of that game's release on the Switch, I figured it'd be nice to share my Mario journey with all of you, and how I came to regard them as the perfect setup for an RPG. And hopefully you'll share your own thoughts and stories with me in turn as a part of the community. So, without further ado, I'm Elakidra, and this is Growing Up a Gamer, why Mario makes the perfect RPG. Back in 1996, the year of my brother's birth, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars hit for Nintendo and the United States, and came away with rave reviews and a cult classic following that constantly rates this title as one of the top 10 RPGs of all time. The intent was to introduce America to a video game RPG using the most popular video game character in the world. Well, it worked. I, of course, being only 4 at the time, missed out on this title, in favor of getting my face scratched by a newborn baby brother. Instead, 4 years later I discovered that the Mario RPG team had a falling out with Square-Enix over a preference for cartridges over CDs. And so, due to licensing, went ahead with a spiritual sequel of a different name. So, at my grandma's that Christmas, I received a copy of Paper Mario, and the rest, as they say, was history. Mario's fitness for the RPG genre had been made abundantly clear for 8-year-old Elakidra. All the characters really needed was a voice. Mario remained silent, of course, but in the same way other Mario games demonstrate, much can be said with the twitch of a mustache and the flip of a cap. Peach and Bowser are almost exactly as I imagined them. Peach is sweet, but not content to sit by and wait to be rescued without doing everything she can to help Mario succeed. Bowser is both arrogant and cartoonishly villainous, with an obvious inferiority complex where Mario is concerned. And, apparently, a crush on Peach that I found increasingly disturbing as I aged. Anyhow, Bowser steals a magical wish-granting MacGuffin, does the whole kidnap thing, and Mario is tasked with rescuing 7 star spirits so they can aid him in defeating Bowser. In true RPG fashion, you travel to every corner of the Mushroom Kingdom, exploring the world as you grow powerful enough to take on Bowser in his final form. Along the way, you encounter dozens of characters, each bursting with life and personality. You can clearly tell each of them has their own thing going on. Many RPGs fail to convey a vibrant and living world due to the blandness of the side characters and NPCs. This is where Mario flourishes, succeeding where many RPGs of that era fell flat. Often, RPGs succeed at having compelling gameplay and an interesting narrative, but fail to keep the players engaged when the world itself seems dead. Mario characters are lively and expressive. They have big feelings, and that incentivizes either big events or deep passion and dialogue to match. You get the sense that the characters care deeply about what goes on around them. They aren't passive bystanders, and so neither can you be. What's more, the game is extremely accessible. Combat calculus is very simple, with attacks never doing more than 2 digits of damage, usually less than 10. Stats are equally simple, not because the game is easy or the players are dumb. This game demonstrates that complexity in combat comes from layers of play, not big numbers and hidden calculations. This is one of the first console games I ever beat. I played it non-stop for a year to accomplish that, oftentimes taking a month off when I got stuck on a boss or two. I was that dedicated to the game. While I didn't realize it at the time, I'd just fallen in love with a genre of games that I didn't even know existed. Paper Mario wasn't the first, and it wouldn't be the last. Whether it was Pokemon or Paper Mario that initially piqued my interest, RPGs have long been my favorite genre of video game. I've always loved stories, and roleplay games tell the most intricate tales. They fully develop a world while delving deeper into character than any film could ever do in a mere 2 hours. Like a series or a novel, they delve deep into what makes the story tick, only with the added bonus of you as the player being actively involved, and in some cases, shaping the story as you see fit, folding the lore around your own ideals. And young Alakindra was not far from forming those ideals in earnest. This story really makes me miss my dad, who always tried his hardest to give his wife and 3 kids the best life that he could. When I was 11, I only wanted one game for my birthday, and was bursting with excitement in the car on the way to the local Target. I was so hyped to get this game, but when my dad and I entered the electronics section to pick it up, and they were out, oh, the disappointment. My dad saw the sadness in my eyes and felt for his son. He promised to stop by Blockbuster for Kingdom Hearts the next day, and got me a copy of Jak and Daxter to tide me over. I was so grateful that day. Ah, the surplus years of the 90s. Good times. Speaking of good times, while I started Jak and Daxter that night before I got Kingdom Hearts, once I had Squaresoft's newest game on my TV, hoo boy! Initially, it was the Disney world that drew me into this game. I knew next to nothing about the Final Fantasy elements of the title. When Leon and Yuffie showed up, I was immediately dismissive of them. They were unfamiliar to me. I just wanted Sora to meet up with Donald and Goofy already so the story could really begin. Like Pokemon had years before, Kingdom Hearts drew me into a world of teenage adventure and magical wonder. It inspired me to try Final Fantasy games later on down the line. By this point you're probably wondering, Alakindra, while you're incredibly handsome and intelligent, what does any of this have to do with Mario RPG? To which I say, equally good-looking viewer, I'm getting to that. You might also be wondering, Alakindra, how can the simple world of Mario and friends make the perfect RPG? Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario himself, has stated that he views story as only one way to enjoy the game, and that he prefers to focus on gameplay. Well, precious viewers, the answer is as simple as you perceive Mario and his friends to be, and lies in the hands of the very same company that created Kingdom Hearts. A legendary studio formerly known as Squaresoft, Square-Enix, the undisputed master of the JRPG genre. Up until the last decade. Excuse me. Now, Kingdom Hearts definitely deserves its own video, as it's also been very formative in my life. And I'll definitely make one someday. As for right now, I just wanted to illustrate its importance as establishing RPGs as one of my favorite types of video games. So, as a lifelong RPG aficionado, let me tell you what I think of Super Mario RPG, now that I've finally gotten around to playing it. I'm excited to say that Super Mario RPG definitely lives up to the hype. Something that surprised me, seeing as it took this long for Nintendo to re-release the game in a meaningful way. The story is typical RPG fare, but enhanced by the fact that the inciting incident, the arrival of the Smithy game, actually interrupts what would have been the exciting incident of a typical Mario game. It adds in the Star Spirits as an additional layer of power that exists what's beyond considered mundane in the Mario universe, and adds the mysticism experienced in a JRPG. The characters are as full of life as any I experienced in the Paper Mario games, expressive and emotional. It's clear that Square was not just checking archetypal boxes as they filled out this game's roster. Most people have Geno as their favorite, but I have to say that I instantly took a shine to the cloud that thinks it's a frog, Mallow. Story gets a solid A from me. The combat was a welcome surprise, as I recently replayed Paper Mario 1 for this video, and was reminded how simple that combat was, in a game that, compared to its superior sequel, which I plan to make a full video on soon, Super Mario RPG surprised me by not only being more complex combat-wise than Paper Mario 1, but having a lot more character skill sets common to JRPGs. I actually found myself preferring that combat over Paper Mario 2's by the end, which only makes me pine more for a true return to form in the realm of Mario RPGs. Combat also gets an A. Structurally, Super Mario RPG gets an A+. Not only was my experience entirely bug-free, but all the necessary facets of an RPG were there. Fast travel was available from the get-go. The world was partitioned into three-dimensional level-like spaces that fit right at home in a Mario universe, without being dissimilar from any given landscape in an RPG of that era. The game made it clear where you were supposed to go and what your objective was, and, thankfully, how to accomplish it, without holding your hand. The tutorial is practically non-existent, aside from the very basics, and the more complicated facets can be skipped over if you so choose. The Mario RPG experience is blessedly smooth and simple, in all the ways that matter. So I'm glad to give Super Mario RPG my first AAA rating. There have been Mario RPGs since Paper Mario 2. The Paper Mario series never stopped making titles, but each had one experimental battle system after another that got further and further away from the turn-based systems I so enjoyed as a child. Super Mario RPG has been the closest I've gotten to that magic in years, and only further increases my desire to play those games again, in a new title. But, in the meantime, Super Mario RPG, I'm glad I didn't miss out on you entirely. I'm Elakidra, and this has been Growing Up a Gamer, why Mario makes the perfect RPG. It's been a joy sharing my personal history of Mario RPG with you all, and I'm curious to hear about your own experiences in the comments below. You can expect a follow-up video to this one, Paper Mario 2: The Thousand Year Door, drops on Switch next year. Until next time!